Howdy historians, Mr. Montgomery here, coming to you with a flip lesson to go over AP US multiple choice questions. We've talked about it a little bit in class. These questions that you're going to see on our unit tests and on the eventual College Board Advanced Placement United States History examination in May are different than most multiple choice questions you've seen before. So let's go over a little bit of the nuts and bolts. We talked about this the first or second day of class, if you can remember it. You probably can't, when we talked about the format of the AP test. But for multiple choice questions, you get 55 questions in 55 minutes. It's 40% of your exam score. The questions appear in sets of 2 to 5. That means 2 to 5 questions are follow each document, and you need to analyze historical texts, interpretations, and evidence. There's primary and secondary sources, images, graphs, and maps. So you've got to respond to this stimulus material, aka the primary, secondary sources, text, image, charts, graphs, maps, etc., and then answer questions about them. That's basically how it goes. So you've got to be able to analyze the documents and then synthesize that information along with stuff you know about the class. Some of the questions are very direct. They come straight from the stimulus material. Some of them reference the stimulus material. Other questions just kind of allude to them or relate to the theme that that material covers. So we're going to go over a couple of them here in a couple different examples, give you some tips, show you how to absolutely dominate the multiple choice section of the test, and we'll do hundreds of these questions throughout the year. So you're definitely going to get used to them and understand how they work. Practice makes permanent, practice makes perfect, and we will make sure that we are practicing well and deliberately, and that you get enough experience with these to know what's going to be expected of you on the test. So let's take a look at two examples in depth. So here's the first one. Just take a moment and read it over. That's the first thing you need to do. Read the entire document. Do your best to read it and read it well. The next thing you want to do after you've read it, I'm hoping that you just paused it and that you read through this. You want to start to look for any type of contextual clues or clues that they give you right in the document. One thing you always want to look for is the source information. Right here we can see this is from Alan Taylor. He's a historian. It's from a book entitled American Colonies, and it was published in 2001. So we can clearly see here that whatever's going on up here in this document is about the American colonies. That's what it's referencing. So look for the clues. Look for key words up here. I don't want to spoil it, but I'm pretty sure you know what's going on here and what event they are speaking of in this historical text. And then you want to see if you can make any conclusions. So, what is this document about? I'm sure many of you have figured it out already. This is really about the Columbian Exchange. The colonizers bringing plants and animals that are new to the Americas, some designed, some by accident. They wanted to farm in a European manner, so they're bringing livestock, they're bringing plants. They're also inadvertently carrying pathogens, weeds and rats, member disease pathogens, making the Americas different because they brought all these things over, but they were never fully controlled. So we know this is about the Columbian Exchange. That's what we need to know, and we can learn a lot just from reading the document carefully and not getting freaked out and full of anxiety and trying to move through it too fast. So read it, look for the clues, make any conclusions you can. This is about the Columbian Exchange. So, the first question, what we need to do here, we need to read the question and look for key language, analyze the possible answers, and then find the best answer. So as we read the question looking for key language, the export of New World crops to the Old World transferred European societies mostly by. So some keys here. New World crops to the Old World transformed European society. So as we start to go through the answers here, we're trying to look for the effect here. The export of New World crops to the Old World transferred European society mostly by A, improving diets and thereby stimulating population growth. Yes, we know that that definitely happened. That seems like it could be a possible answer. B, encouraging enclosure of open lands and pushing workers off of farms. Well, that doesn't quite make sense and link up to new food. Why would we be pushing workers off farms if we now are farming more? C, promoting greater exploration of the interior of the American continents. Did the Columbian Exchange actually promote exploration of the interior? Well, a little bit, but that's going to come quite a bit later. They really just explored the coastal areas more than anything else. D, fostering conflicts among major powers over access to new food supplies. There was some conflict over trade commodities, but those came much later in the colonial period of American history, not so much after the Columbian Exchange. So the answer we're going for here is A, improving diets and thereby stimulating population growth, something that we covered pretty well in class. So there's one example of a question you could get. Pretty direct, but you also need to know that European populations increased as a result of the Columbian Exchange. So now as we go into our second example, we have the same passage up top, and now we have a new question. So let's read the question, look for key language. The patterns described in the excerpt most directly foreshadowed which of the following developments? Well, foreshadowed which of the following developments? So that's what we're looking for. So again, it's kind of a cause and effect causation question here. So the Columbian Exchange caused which of the developments below? The spread of, let's do number 2 now. Let's analyze possible answers. A, the spread of maize, aka corn cultivation northward from present-day Mexico into the American Southwest. We know that happened well before the Columbian Exchange. We can kick that one out right away. B, the population decline in Native American societies. We know that this was an effect of the Columbian Exchange, and it goes along with this inadvertently carrying pathogens. C, the gradual shift of European economies from feudalism to capitalism. We know this is something that takes place. We know capitalism was spurred and increased from the Columbian Exchange and colonization, so that one's going to be there. That's a possibility. D, the emergence of racially mixed populations in the Americas. We know that eventually after the Columbian Exchange, the Spanish come over and need labor, and they start to import African slaves. But now we've got to figure out which one's the best. We threw out A right away. The next one we've got to throw out is D, because the emergence of racially mixed populations in the Americas happens long after the Columbian Exchange got going. The gradual shift of European economies from feudalism to capitalism, there's nothing in the passage above that specifically talks about money, gold, silver, or specie. Instead, they're really talking about food and disease, which leaves us with B, the population decline in Native American societies. So because the pattern described above, one of them is inadvertently carried pathogens, we go with B, and that is the answer that we are looking for because it has the most direct link to the pattern described in the excerpt. So this is one with some text. Now let's check out an example with a chart. So here we see this piece of stimulus. The first thing we've got to do is analyze it. Don't underestimate reading. I know, seems obvious, but you're going to get nervous and you're going to forget to do it. Estimated population of the southern colonies in British North America from 1670 to 1790. We've got to continue to analyze some more. This chart's going to be super important here. The skinny line, African American population. The dotted line, European population. The kind of skinny dash, Native American, and the thickest line, the total population. We've got population numbers coming up the side. We've got the year on the bottom. So we've got to analyze that and know what's going on. We've got to look for clues. This, again, this chart, this key is going to be the big clue. And as we start to look for conclusions or contextualizations, well, we can see that overall the total population goes down for a little bit, but then goes up. We see the population of European Americans starting low, but then really starting to increase. The population of African Americans starts at basically 0, but sees a pretty heavy increase, and the population of Native Americans starts high and finishes very low. These conclusions are going to help us. Now, as we look at the first question that goes along with this, again, we need to read the question and look for key language. And there's some very key language in here. So take a second and read the question. Okay, were you able to spot the key language? What was it? Hopefully what you saw was total population from 1670 to 1700. So as we read the question, the trend in total population from 1670 to 1700 depicted on the graph is best explained by. So as we're going through here, we've got to do some more analysis because it's 1670 to 1700. So 1670 is the start, 1700 is right there. So we're not looking at the whole chart. We're looking at part of it. Read the question. It's going to help you a lot. And we're looking at total population. So what's it doing? It's going down at this time. So what the question is really asking is what caused the total population to go down during this 30-year period? So would it be A, food scarcity and extensive malnutrition amongst African Americans? Well, no, their population is actually slightly going up, so that wouldn't account for any type of population going down. The spread of epidemic diseases among Native Americans, that sounds like a pretty strong answer. Large-scale European migration, that wouldn't cause the total population to go down. Increases in life expectancy, that wouldn't cause the total population to go down. So if you key in on the language here, B is clearly the best answer because we're trying to figure out what caused the total population to dip. So B, the spread of epidemic diseases among Native Americans, is the answer we're going for. So these chart ones, these graph ones, got to pay attention, got to really look for that key language, got to analyze your information, and then analyze the answers to find the best one. So let's go on to one more example here. We've got the same chart, and again, we've got to read the question looking for key language. Go ahead and read it and look for some key language. Alright, so hopefully you got it. What we're going for here, the population trend of African Americans depicted on the graph resulted most directly from which of the following? So it's the total population trend for African Americans. So we've got to find this skinny line here that kind of starts at 0 and then eventually gets right up around 600,000. So let's answer the question now. What is accounting for an overall increase in African American populations during the total time period? A decline in the birth rate among enslaved people. That doesn't make sense because the population's going up. So a decline in birth rate, we can throw that out. The increased use of white indentured servants as a labor force. Well, we know from Bacon's Rebellion that indentured servants actually were not used very much during this time. Their numbers were going down. And also, we want to see what's making African American population go up. If they were using white indentures, the African American population would be going down. The outlawing of the international slave trade. Well, although that does happen later on, that's not going to account for why the slave population would be going up. So all we're left with is D, the development of an economy based on growing crops for export. And we need people to work those farms, those plantations, and stimulate that economy. So D is the answer that we're going for. So you've got to know what you're looking at in your source material. You've got to read the question carefully, you've got to analyze your answers, and then you've got to find that best answer. So just to wrap it up, a couple big ideas here. One, always analyze and read the entire document, graph, chart, whatever stimulus you're looking at. Take your time to make sure you understand what you are looking at and analyze it. Look for context. Look for your clues. Look for your hints. Read the titles of charts. Look for the author. Look for what the name of their book is. Look for what year it was published. All those things are hints and clues that are going to help you. And look for context and conclusions. Like in that first one, as soon as you read it, you should know that's about the Columbian Exchange. And that will help you find the answer as you start to go through it. So these questions can be a little tricky, but the answers are there. Just combine the source material, analyze it, combine it with your outside knowledge and your superior critical thinking skills, and you're going to do great on these multiple choice questions. Always make sure as we go through them in class that you ask questions so that you learn how to do them. You will be a pro by the end of the year. So that's a little look at Advanced Placement U.S. History, document-based multiple choice questions. I'm out of here. See you next time. Peace!